Today. Now we're looking at reactions as Nigerian motor manufacturers and assemblers continue to express worry over some new aspects of the Finance Act, which could also affect the auto industry. The Finance Act 2020 was signed into law on December the 31st, 2020 by President Muhammadu Buhari and came into effect on the 1st of this month. Now, the new law introduced over 80 changes to 14 different laws that will affect various stakeholders. This includes the reduction of import duty on tractors from 35% to 5%, mass transit vehicles and trucks from 35% to 10%, and then the reduction of import levy on cars from 30% to 5%. Now, joining me in our Lagos studio to discuss this development and much more, I have Wole Ogundare, the managing partner of Katana Advisory. Good to have you on the breakfast show today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, when we talk about tax cuts and levies, this is a welcome development, especially we saw the back and forth which made the headlines last year, whether or not car mats and operators within the field are paying their import duties completely. So a slash within that regard is helping to fuel that business sector, is helping to support and sustain businesses, especially at a point in time where we are hit by the COVID-19. But the kickback we're also having from local manufacturers is the fact that this move will, in a very long way, go ahead to stifle the local manufacturing base. We are going to see an increased job cuts, and at the end of the day, it seems like a somersault, policy somersault. How do we marry these two sides of the coin we have to deal with and sustain both sectors?
So let me quickly help people at home understand. A lot of people at home don't really understand how government works. Let me just set the tone properly. Whenever any government comes in, the whole idea is to say that, look, I know what is going on in the country. So in a case like Nigeria, X% are youth, the young country and stuff like that. There are two types of policies to now begin to say, look, this is how I want to shape the country, this is how I want things to go. We have the macro policies. And the macro policies, and this is for the people at home, so to get a better understanding, we have the fiscal, which is the taxes, we have the monetary, and we have the supply side. The macro policies are typically used across sectors. So whatever happens at the macro level affects everybody. At the micro level, which is what we're talking about now, we also have different kinds of policies. You know, that's where you have the subsidies. That's where you have the policies to control competition. That's where you have policies around environmental sustainability and stuff like that. What we're talking about as it affects the auto industry pertains to things around the subsidy. So this is a micro policy. The challenge that, you know, I have and a lot of Nigerians also express on a daily basis is at the macro and the micro level, the policies are not consistent. Just as you said, you come up with a policy, you say 35%, okay, this policy is to protect those internal producers, the automakers. You attract some people who come in. I heard about 8 automakers came in when that policy, oh, Nigeria is a good environment to now start producing vehicles. 2 years down the line, you reverse it again. All the investments that has been brought in, what's going to happen to it? So in my view, as you've said, without that consistent theme by the government, we stand to lose a lot more than job losses. External investments are going to dip in that auto sector. Now, when people see what is going on in the auto sector, other guys who want to come in across other sectors are going to look at Nigeria and say, these guys don't have consistent policies to address even the micro level. Why should we go in there to invest?
Which side of the coin would you want the government to pay more attention to? Those who are within the value chain of imported vehicles and then they have Nigerians buy vehicles at cheaper rates, or those who are manufacturing, improving on our local base, and then Nigerians can actually buy brand new vehicles?
Let me give you a good answer to that. Today, we don't have the capacity to produce enough vehicles. Again, I was checking the data, somewhere around 800,000 cars demand per year. Something around 4,000 or 5,000 cars produced in Nigeria per year. Look at the difference. Until you achieve a sustainable nature where you can actually produce things
Or
for
supply
yourself.
and demand.
You know, where you can actually cater to the demand internally. You can't create policies to say, don't import. It won't happen. If you look at things like commodities, like yam, we produce far more yam than we can eat, but we can't even export it. That's a different kettle of fish altogether because we waste so much of it. Ghana, our next door neighbors, produces less than half of what we're producing, but their own external supply to the rest of the world far, far, far outstrips what we do here in Nigeria. These are all around the policies we're talking about. So if you look at, like I said, that's why I started from the macro and the micro policies. If you look at those two levels, that's where you control growth, regulation, protection, sovereignty. That's what you use to propel yourself as a serious country to the rest of the world. We're not doing it.
As a tax expert now, let's bring in focus the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. We are still fine-tuning the lines of implementation. There are still regional talks and committees are still meeting to ensure that every single country is trying as much as possible to put their best foot forward. In terms of tax incentives and other investment sentiments that you expect to see at this point in time within the local manufacturing base, how do you think things will play out? We've already had kickbacks that in terms of agriculture, we are not doing enough. In terms of tourism, we are not doing enough. In terms of aviation and a whole lot more, that we now have the hit of the COVID-19. You make mention of regional efforts like those within the West African region, Ghana, the Gambia, and a whole lot more. It seems Nigeria is not still asserting itself in terms of that strategic role of the giant of Africa, leveraging on the demand aspect, improving on infrastructure, having incentives to fuel all of these sectors of the economy. No doubt, if you want to consolidate on any forecast that we have for the second half of the year, 2021, we must take action now to support the local base.
Yes. So I've said this before. Let's put a few perspectives on the table. One, we're no longer the giant of Africa. Only 3.7 million people in Nigeria can spend 144,000 naira per month. Only 3.7
Just by the
million
population
people.
base.
Just by the population base. You know, so in terms of, are we in the position to set the tone for anything? No. Have we been able to say that, look, these are consistent policies, macro and micro? No. So that also takes me to what I usually, again, talk about, core infrastructure. If you say you want to be a manufacturing giant, the first thing you want to do is to pay attention to your core infrastructure, security, housing, social infrastructure, water, mining, agriculture, ICT, power, you know. Until you pay attention to those things, and research has shown that energy is the highest area of infrastructure that we need to pay attention to very quickly because of the multiplier it can give us. Until we do that, we're going to continue to run helter-skelter, and that free trade agreement will continue to stall because we don't have policies consistent across the region to be able to create proper synergies. That is a challenge with that free trade agreement. That's why it'll continue to drag. There are no consistent policies to say, if we do this in Nigeria, is it consistent across? You know, can we see the same thing in Ghana, Gambia, Togo, all the regional countries? Can we see the same thing? The answer is no. Therefore, that agreement will continue to drag.
The AFCFTA still remains one of the biggest blocks that Nigeria ought to tap into, and then would like to see a time where Nigeria would have competitive pricing in country, would like to see manufacturing base also grow. But at the end of the day, we want to see the dividend of democracy. We want to have better living. We want to be able to say, well, Nigeria is trading favorably across the economic region, but all of these cannot be done unless we put to pen and paper all of the necessary things that have to be done and translated to implementable policies.
Correct.
And then every Nigerian has the impact on the table. Thank you very much for your time
Thank
on
you
the
very
Breakfast Show today. Walo Godari. It's been a pleasure
Thank you.
speaking with you.
Thank you.